Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for this media, content, and new football narrative panel discussion. I'll let each of my panelists introduce themselves, starting with Sandy.
Hello everyone, I'm Sandy. I'm the Senior Global Partnership Director at Rising Ballers. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Marc Bircham, Chairman of Seg Media and also Sports.com.
Hi, I'm Nick, or Nick Lewis, sorry, Creative Director at Copper90.
I'm Terry Flewis, the owner and founder of the Football Terrace.
Great. So, this is a time like no other for football content. The largest FIFA World Cup in history with more teams and more matches, and a seminal defining moment in the burgeoning North American market. While the 90 minutes on TV is appointment viewing, the ancillary content outside the match is more fragmented than ever between broadcasters, OTT creators, clubs, and federations. So my first question to each of you is in two parts. First, who is the audience that you're targeting? And second, what is your strategy for creating compelling content to continually engage that audience? Nick, we'll begin with you and your network of creators at Copa90.
Yeah, so Copper90 was basically founded on the premise of everything outside the 90 minutes makes the 90 minutes matter more. And our audience is kind of interesting because we don't necessarily define them by like age as like a single trait that defines our audience, but they're certainly a very culturally aware, globally engaged football fan, and they're obviously very passionate around players and clubs and big tournaments like the World Cup, but they're also interested in the aesthetics of the game, the communities and the stories that surround the match, which kind of imbues it with so much meaning for them. So, generally speaking, obviously Skew's very young and digitally native, but they're really passionate about connection to the game because they see football as not just sport, but as kind of a cultural language, first and foremost.
Okay. And then Sandy at Rising Ballers, your approach is a little different because you're targeting a younger audience.
Yeah, I mean, Rising Ballers was set up on the premise that we had one of our founders was in the pro system. He played for Spurs and Leyton Orient, but he didn't have a backup plan and he didn't know if he was going to make it. So the backup plan was to create Rising Ballers, and that Rising Ballers was all founded on sort of creating culture and opportunity for the next wave and focusing on the younger side of the talent. So the first people that were featured on it were like Jadon Sancho, Phil Foden, because they were playing against our founder, Brendan, and he was like, no one's talking about these players, but these players already have 50, 60,000 followers on social. And so we started looking at how that could be packaged together and, talking about those stories for a younger generation and really bringing that to light. And that's where sort of Rising Ballers was really founded on, is like telling that story for the next generation, really showcasing what the next generation of talent was going to be, because no one else was really doing it. You had Wonder Kids in Football Manager, for example. Sometimes you talk about people having their debuts, but there was no one really talking about the kids coming through the academies or the next person that would be making it. So that's where we're founded on, and that sort of, because we do that, we have this sort of evergreen model, right? So our audience comes in because their favourite player is in the youth system, let's say Jadon Sancho, and then as he's got older, we've sort of stopped talking about him because he gets over 22, 23, but then it's all about the next one. So the Jadon Sancho fans have stuck with us, and then the next fans of the next person, so like the Cheetos at Man United, for example, they'll come into our universe and we'll start growing with them as well. So that's how we've built our community, that's what we've always founded on, and because we've been doing that, we sort of have the voice of this generation. We sort of say we speak for them, we tell the stories that mean more to them. We speak their language, digitally native, like Nick says. We treat our editorial more like a creator or an admin rather than like a brand, and that sort of connects deeper with them. And that's how we sort of set up where we started from and how we've built our community and built our audience.
Okay. And then at Franchise, we've developed an infrastructure for clubs to learn more about their fans so they can create a curated experience and treat each fan differently depending on where they stand in a loyalty score. Terry, when we were talking, tell us kind of how you left the finance world 5 years ago to create the Football Terrace because of something that you felt your club wasn't addressing.
Yeah, so from my perspective, what I was doing was a hobby. It was never going to be a business. It was just fan reactions to games. And when people like myself 13 years ago went live after games or interviewed fans outside stadiums, it was never meant to be a business. It was never meant to be something that could make money. I remember meeting YouTube at a bank event and told them what we were doing, and they said, you'll be lucky if you get more than 50,000 subscribers. And if you look at the fan channel community as a whole, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 million individual people following those accounts, and the views are in the billions. What I also noticed is that there was very little opportunity for, it might offend a few people, but real fans to really have their say in the UK. You had TalkSport that would charge you £2.50 a minute to have to sit backstage for 20 minutes to have a 2-minute conversation with the presenter. So nobody could really express themselves. And equally, you sometimes couldn't, or you definitely couldn't on radio, speak your mind. You got bleeped and dumped quite a bit. So we gave an opportunity to people to speak about how they really feel, to open up about their club. And we've seen a lot of issues that we predominantly cover the top 6 in the Premier League. We've seen a lot of issues with those clubs, with Man United's owners as an example. Chelsea are going through it now. And we kind of pioneered this ability for these fans to speak, the everyday fan as they were. And during lockdown, the numbers went crazy, and there was an opportunity for me to turn it into my full-time job, which I never thought I would do. I thought I'd be in the bank forever, but I love what I do, because every day I just get to speak football with real football fans. It doesn't really feel real. My footballing abilities weren't good enough to make it in the game, so doing this is a very, very good second place prize.
No, that's great. And Marc, your platform's a little different because you have multiple sports on it. So what's your approach, especially on the football side of things?
Well, a bit different for me, because I come in as director of sports.com, and then I was voted in as chairman of the whole company. We own sports.com, lottery.com, concerts.com. And my predecessor before me, his plan was to be a sports media company, to stream, show live sports, but very hard now, because as you know, the Gen Zs, millennials, whatever you want to call them, they don't really watch live sports. I've got a son who's 24, he'll watch QPR because he loves them, but other sports, they don't really watch live sports. It's all highlights, it's all social media. So we acquired Veloce, which is an eSIM racing company, Lando Norris part of it. We bought Lando Norris's clothing line, Quadrant, part owners of that. And what they bought 500 million views a month. They've got 40 million subscribers. So it's how we could really merge them into our company. So we've gone the other way, and we've gone for a sports predict market. So it's not betting before you start with. I'm just saying that legally. A sports prediction market. We're starting up for the World Cup, where we can keep it all in-house or in the ecosystem, where we can merge subscribers and everything. So that's what we're going for now, because you need deep pockets to be a sports media company. You look at the broadcasters out there, you even need the sugar daddy behind you, or you need some deep pockets, and that weren't for us.
And for each of you, what's your specific approach for World Cup, this coming World Cup? How are you altering your strategy around that?
I think, unsurprisingly, for a lot of people in our industry right now, the power of the creator is obviously at the forefront of everybody's mind. We're kind of treating this World Cup like it's the World's Cup. We want to be in as many countries as possible, with genuine fans and creators on the ground, documenting their experiences and bringing those stories to life. I think, obviously, we will be in the US as well, and the US is obviously such a huge market in itself for football audiences, but very much it's about trying to meet fans where they are and where they're spending time, and certainly using creators as a way in which to do that. We have a big audience in our own right, but certainly now with the fragmented social landscape, that the intersection of kind of culture and sport is so important, that we want to meet fans where they are and where they're spending time, but most importantly who they're spending time with. So we have an extensive creator network network that's going to enable us to kind of tell more stories. We heard in the last panel about the expansive nature of this tournament being across 3 nations, time zones, and 106 games. So it would be impossible for a team in New York and in London to cover all of that and do it justice. So our main ambition is certainly to meet fans of the game where they are with the creators that they admire. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a decentralized Copa 90 summer this year, which is super exciting.
What I'm finding is we're having to, first World Cup or any sort of major sporting event, we're having to build expectation up because it's probably the least anticipated World Cup I've ever known. I live in the States and Dubai. I would say 2 years ago, the excitement for the World Cup was through the roof. It was going to be one of the best World Cups that there's ever going to be. But now, whether it's part of FIFA, whether it's pricing, it's a real downer on it. So we're having to build that excitement, expectation with stuff.
I was in the US at Easter, and you wouldn't have known that in a few months' time there was going to be a tournament.
Well, you just go for the home nations, England and Scotland that are going to World Cup. Normally, there's great excitement before. There's a real downer on it. So we're going to have to create our own audience, our own excitement for it.
Yeah, I think for ourselves at the Terrace, we sort of cater to what I call the FOMO audience, because a lot of people can't get to games. And we're now the biggest live match reaction platform in the world. So we're really there for them. So we'll cover England's games, of course, and then a lot of the big nations. And we're there ready to go live for some of the great stories. We saw in Qatar when the Saudis beat Argentina. That was our second biggest live stream of the whole tournament. I think we had 90,000 people watching and reacting to, obviously, Messi's team get beat. So we're kind of there and ready, and that's the sort of area we sit in. It is great. We went out to Qatar and spent time out there. It was a little bit easier because it was all in one town. It's a lot harder logistically to do what we do after games and travel around North America and Mexico. But we'll be there ready for the fans after games, for them to be able to give their opinions, phone in, banter some people, laugh at people, and just have a bit of fun, really. But I do echo what you're saying. There does seem to be an element of like a lack of hype. But typically, my experience in this is that the less hype, the more you enjoy the tournament, where if you think it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, it can often be underwhelming. Fantasies never live up to the expectations. Well, that's what my wife told me.
Let's not go down that again. I think for Rising Ballers, the main thing that we're sort of doing is continuing to build on the foundation we've already done, right? So if we look at who our audience is, it's Gen Z, it's Gen Alpha. They're inherently more native to digital and to Instagram, to TikTok, to YouTube. So we've already built that foundation, so we'll be there that more and building on that more. I think what's really interesting for that and that audience is, and something that Terry might be able to allude on as well, is some of the research we've done around creators. Nick's mentioned that it's going to be the Creator World Cup, they're going to be everywhere. We've coined a term cultural co-stars, which looks at more the network of players. So obviously the players are in blackouts, they can't be part of any sort of activity, but what about their partners, what about their personal trainers, all those sort of people within their inner circle that are able to tell what they're going through, what the player's viewpoint is, what they experience, but through the cultural co-stars lens is really interesting. But when it looks at the audience as well, I think the really interesting place is they're not really going to watch the broadcast as much. But what they will do is they might sit on their phone and have a watch-along going with their favourite creator and then consume everything through their feed of what's going on in those live moments. And we're finding that is a much more prevalent youth sort of behaviour than actually going, right, I'm going to stay up to 2 a.m. to watch Scotland-Haiti. But what I might do, on BBC or ITV in the UK, what I might do, though, is watch one of the Scottish creators do a watch-along and experience it that way and experience it through their lens, because they trust that more. They feel like, no offense to Marc, but they're looking at ex-pros and pundits and they're like, I don't relate to you. I don't even know who you play for. I don't even know, what team you play for. I don't even relate to what your experiences are. But my favorite creator, he shows me how I can experience it. He shows me how I can experience it. He shows me the words I can say during those things, during the matches. And that's something that trust is there and that relatability is there. I'm not going to say the A word because I promised myself not to say it because it's said so much. But that's something that we will do, and we'll continue to do so because we've built that foundation from sort of 2016-17 when we were founded, and we'll continue to double down on that because that's how we've grown, that's how our audience has grown, and that's what our audience expects from us.
Okay, and then obviously monetization is important to keep the lights on. As you said, you never thought it would become a business. I'll start with you, Sandy, because you probably have perhaps the most challenging audience to reach because they're skeptical of commercialization. So how do you weave with your partner brands in Rising Ballers?
Yeah, good question. I think it's not that it's difficult. They're very savvy. They're very intelligent. They see through sort of ads. If you are delivering an ad message to them, they turn off straight away because it's not how they expect content to be delivered to them. It's not how they want to experience content. It's not how they want to consume content. But the good thing we have is brands are always looking at the next generation of consumer, right? They're always looking at who they can bring into their world, who they can sell to, who they can market to, and that's our audience. So what we're able to do is because my job is basically balancing a brand and the RB editorial and finding that middle ground to create content, or in this question, the answer to this question is like, how do we monetize our content and our editorial to bring that to life? So that's my job, but what we do is, and how we do it is we basically look at how editorially it's working, look at the consumption habits, look at behaviors, look at content works, look at trends, look at how we do things, and try and bring brands into that world. We try and certify them in youth culture in that way that is important to them, that ingratiates them with the audience. But then also we use Rising Ballers to jetpack that, right? So, you know, we can create an incredible ad or a credible piece of content for a brand over there, but then we have our editorial and our voice and our trusted voice of Rising Ballers that can then connect the dots together. And that's essentially how we monetize. That's how we work with brands to deliver that content, to deliver messages, and hopefully improve the experience for everyone, right? So we're improving the experience for our audience and our community because they're getting something a bit different. They might get a BTS look at, you know, how Virgil van Dijk is experiencing music through JBL, for example. And we help the brands reach our audience, and hopefully we make that experience much better.
Okay. And then, Nick, with your agency experience, how do you organically weave your partner brands within your content?
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone seems to be a bit downbeat on the 90 minutes, and people aren't necessarily watching it so much anymore. But I think it's about being additive to the conversation. You know, I think you're right in calling out kind of skepticism around badging of the game. I think there's so many sponsors and partners with leagues and federations. I think even at this World Cup, we're seeing that much more so, where people are signing deals for just like single tournament usage. And even if you look at domestic leagues, shirts are like a plethora of badges and icons, but they don't really mean anything to a lot of the audience, and because they don't participate in the culture. So, for instance, with a lot of our clients, it's about understanding how we can kind of add to the experience of the fan, give them something that they might not ordinarily have, or speak to them and connect with them in a way that we would ordinarily do editorially. So, at the moment, we're working with Michelob Ultra, who are the sponsors of the Player of the Match Award at this World Cup. We unearthed an insight that there wasn't a Player of the Match officially given prior to 2002. So retrospectively, we're going to tell that story about those players and about those World Cups. But that's the type of thing that the Copper 90 audience are passionate about and love anyway. And Michelob have the connection to the on-field experience. So, yeah, it's very much about trying to, again, I'll say it, but meeting the audience where they are with the creators and with the stories that that they're likely to be interested in, not just a badging exercise.
Okay, thank you. And then, Terry, you know, you mentioned that I think from your commercialization standpoint, a lot of the brands are kind of leveraging the trust that you have with your audience.
Yeah, it's a little different for, say, us at the Football Terrace. It's predominantly me that hosts all the shows and is the face of it. So it's very much about me and my audience trusting one another. So if I find a brand I like, a product I like, sometimes I approach them and say, do you want to work together? Other times they come to me, but it's always got to be long term. So if I have a VPN company that comes to me, I don't want to just advertise NordVPN in September and then ExpressVPN in December and then whoever else VPN in the summer, because there's no authenticity with it and your audience will distrust you. And I think that's our big element commercially. If I'm going to partner with any type of company, whether it's food, drink, music, it has to be something I like organically. You know, a lot of the music brands that have come to us in the past, I don't listen to. There's not much market in football for Michael Bublé, so I can't leverage that. You know, I'm not going to sit there and talk to them about some singer. I am old, I'm 40. I just about know who Billie Eilish is, so I can't try and sell a young up-and-coming artist to my audience that are young, because they're going to go, shut up, unks. It's not real. So I just need to be really mindful of that when we do partnerships, that it needs to be organic, but equally something my audience would want. And I know my audience very, very well because I speak to them 3 times a day, 7 days a week, basically. So that's kind of our model, which is a little different. But if anyone is watching that's got some money to give away, come let us know.
I can't believe you disrespected Michael Bublé like that, a fellow Canadian legend.
I love Michael Bublé. I'm just, my audience probably not so much, you know.
And Marc, what about you?
It's quite easy for me because with the sports addiction market, that's how we're going to monetize it. The good thing about sports addiction, that we're going after people that are a bit disheartened by gaming and betting to get them into the sports predict market, and we're a worldwide market. So good thing about sports addiction, it's Sharia compliant, so you open it up to another world for people out in the Middle East, out in Pakistan. India stopped in-game gaming out there. So again, we're targeting that market to come and predict live prediction and sports. So it's really exciting for us. We partnered with Polymarket. That's the biggest prediction market in the world. So we're going in a different direction and we're really looking forward to it. So look, we'll see how it goes.
Okay. And then how will you approach content creation after the World Cup?
Oh, with Veloce, they're big content creators. We've got sports ambassadors as well, ex-legends, ex-players. So we'll be doing it during the World Cup as well. So we'll focus it on games, but all around the prediction market. So it's linked to it. So that's how we're going to do it. With after the World Cup, it'll be how we can transfer them over to the European football leagues straight from the World Cup, because was it 3 weeks, 4 weeks after the real football starting? So that's how we need a segue, how we're going to get them from the World Cup, whether they're disheartened with it, there's been too many games, or it's the best World Cup in the world, you've still got to try and get them interested in the new season that's coming.
What about you, Sandy?
Yeah, I think we'll probably continue what we're doing. Like when you said what we're doing gearing up for the World Cup, we've laid the foundation. We'll continue to. I think the main thing for us, once World Cup is over, season pretty much starts again. The pre-season's probably 2 weeks after the World Cup ends. Season will start pretty quick after that. But one thing we'll continue to do and double down on is our mission, and that's creating culture and opportunity for the next wave. Continuing to serve that, continuing to deliver content that Gen Z, Gen Alpha can connect with, can consume, that tells the stories that is relevant to them, and continue doing that editorially. I think that's the main thing. We're really consistent in what we do. We want to make sure that we are the place that young people can come to and be entertained, but have a trusted news source, or have content that sort of connects with them and it speaks their language and tells them how to relate to football, or how they can experience football, or the emotions they can feel through football. So nothing different. We'll continue doing what we're doing.
Nick?
Yeah, so for us, I think it's particularly interesting tournament because it's been expanded to lots of new nations. So historically, we've always had great success by going and finding stories that haven't been told before, and really immersing ourselves in communities that might be a bit overlooked by traditional or established media. So the last World Cup, our big story was that we didn't go to Qatar. We were in Argentina for the whole thing. We're the only Western media, European media outlet there for sure. And this year, we're going to look to do the same again. I think, there's lots of stories, whether that's the Uzbeki national team or the number of teams representing the Middle East. and really look to unearth something particularly interesting, and certainly then go on that journey with that audience again. Over the last sort of 10, 12 years, we've unearthed incredible clubs and players, and we've built audiences that have appreciated that storytelling, and so therefore we look to endeavour to carry on doing that as authentically, there we go, authentically as we can. And
two,
then,
by the way.
just keep going, really. But I think, primarily it's about trying to find something that the traditional media broadcasters aren't going to be picking up on, have people on the ground in those cities and countries which might be a little bit unexpected, and it's trying to find those ways to connect with kind of smaller audiences across the globe around this World Cup.
It's a great idea. I might go Cape Verde to watch it for the month.
I'll come with you. It'll be good.
Terry?
For us, we have what I call the Vatican of football going on every summer, and that's the transfer window. So for us, it's almost a world within a world, if that makes sense, because your team could have had an awful season, but the transfer window is the beginning of that new hope. And I can't speak for other nations. I just know growing up in the UK, you get to the beginning of the season. It doesn't matter if you're a Man United fan or a Leyton Orient supporter. You all have this newfound hope at the beginning of a campaign. So we do a lot of work with our audience. Sometimes they're not very happy if they've had a bad summer. Sorry, Chelsea fans. But there is that building up, that anticipation for the start of the new campaign by covering the transfer stories and the ebb and the flow of them. So we'll put a lot of focus into that at the same time as the World Cup's going on. So we don't really stop. It's just the season is 12 months a year.